So hello, Adam here, and today we have Robert and Sebastian, and we would like to discuss Maven and the relation between Maven and plugins, convention over configuration or not. And to save time, I will start with my opinion, and my opinion should be Maven is already conventional, and it should be as conventional as possible. It means there should be consistent strategy that if you use blank Maven newest version, I would expect to pull the newest plugins and whatever is new, but release, not snapshots. If I would pull the release version of Maven, I would expect to include all the plugins, the newest plugins which are released. I'm talking about the Apache plugins like everything with org Apache group ID. So this is my basic idea, and why I like to do this, because currently on all my projects the POM is like, I would say 35 lines of code, so there is no inheritance, nothing is very lean, and this is what developers appreciate. And if I would like to have a particular version of plugin, let's say Maven compiler plugin or Javadoc, for instance, recently was the same story with Javadoc. I would just write it. It's like, okay, now I'd like to have Maven 301. And this is, I would say, the topic of today's session, right? So now the Robert is the Apache committer. And just go ahead.
Okay, so this is a completely different approach about how to use the POM file. Because this means that if every time there's a different version of Maven, you could have different result, because plugins would be updated in that case.
Mm-hmm.
And we've seen quite a lot of projects break because if we just update plugin versions. So that's one of the reasons why we say you should specify the version of these plugins inside your POM file to keep it consistent over the years.
Mm-hmm. Sebastian, you are muted. You know this, right?
Yes, I know this.
Okay.
I thought you were recording, so there's some fire trucks in the background, so I don't want to disturb the recording.
So now go ahead with your opinion.
Yes, so I agree. This is also how I do. I've done most of the client projects, trying to keep the POM as minimalistic as possible. And I'm strongly against the Maven overusage of introducing tons of plugins and all kind of stuff that after a few, except the original author, that usually nobody knows why it's there, right? You define a lot of plugins in a specific version, and then nobody knows why you specifically need that version. Maybe there was a reason, maybe there wasn't. So ideally, I would also just delete everything and keep the POM minimalistic. However, I also see the point that we want to use Maven in such a way that it's predictable what is being used. And if you don't specify anything, I agree, it should just pull the latest release version, like the latest stable version. But if you want to, for some reason, point it down to specific versions, I believe that's quite a benefit if we had a feature where you could do so without introducing, tons of plugins versions. So, for example, what I like to have is a way to specify reproducible builds, that you basically say, I issue a Maven clean install, Maven clean package, and that also in a few months from now will result in the very same plugins and versions being used, mm-hmm. without introducing a lot of plugins.
Yeah.
So without overly defining the huge plugin list that the Maven Super POM defines. So that could be a need for some kind of new feature where I can point that down to some specific version.
What I noticed is using right now Maven 3.6, and I believe this is the newest version. And then yes. I launched the compiler and launched the Javadoc plugin. And I think both, if you do nothing, they use the version 2.9.1. This mm-hmm. is like the default setting of Maven. And
probably,
yeah. And I ask myself, why? And this seems like that all the plugins, all the plugins which are Sebastian and I, we spent and me, we're spending most of our time in Java E projects. So what we mostly use is War, compiler, and and that's basically it. And the Surefire and FaceSafe plugins.
Yeah.
And it seems like these plugins they are using all the plugins using the same version, so 2.9.1. And if you are using JDK 11, you should use 3.01 or the newest one. I think 3.01 is the newest. So I think there could be also an option, a global option to set the version. So you can say Maven minus global version, and all the Apache plugins should use the version, because the question is why there is 2.9.1. So who decides which version Maven should use? And there are two camps, actually. I think Sebastian and me, we are a little bit unusual. What most of the projects are doing, they are explicitly declaring all the compiler or the plugins and so forth. But what I do, I perform code reviews, and I ask them, why you choose the version? They have no idea. And it seems for me like someone decided, or per accident, the user picked a version, it worked, and they forgot about that. So I think this is even worse. Because predictable means if you do nothing, in one point of time it will break, because if you update Java or whatever, it won't work anymore.
Yes, very much agree. And that's also an issue I recently had. If you use Java 11, and then you get at least some warnings with the default version, unless you explicitly bump the version. But that's what I mean, right? Like once you have the issue, then you might set it to the newest version. But then 2 months from now, you ask yourself, why did I choose that version, right? And there was no particular reason. So either you want to just take always the latest, which is fine for development mode or for pet projects or whatever, or you want to have at least, and I think we have a very similar idea, Adam. Robert, I proposed such an idea to you in the past, to have some kind of like an option or a specific, I called it super POM version, quote unquote, where you say, okay, all the whole hierarchy of Maven plugin versions being used should be just fixed to, let's say, the latest today, right? And then tomorrow we have repeatable builds and nobody changes that, and it works for this current state. And then you only have one version to update. If in a few months from now you say, okay, let's try the newest version, and it still works, okay, now this is the new version with predictable builds or whatever.
So this is a proposal Hervé did, and that was that with every release of Maven, we would also introduce a POM file with the latest plugin versions.
Mm-hmm. And introduce POM file means Maven ships with an internal POM file with the hard-coded plugins, okay?
Yes.
So would that mean you could set it in, this sounds to me like you set it in the Maven binary, like the Maven version you used to build, but not in the project, right?
Both is possible, I think. In the end, the idea is that you specify this as your new parent.
Okay.
So based on that, you will get the latest version. But again, if you want to use newer versions of plugins, that would mean you need to update the parent every now and then.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if this is the best solution.
I think the best solution would be really like a Maven property in a project. We have like no Maven compiler version, and there should be like Maven global version behavior or whatever. And there's just one flag, latest release, or this is a minimalistic version. This would be enough.
All right. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I also would rather not set something like a parent, and I would like to have a minimalistic way how to specify it, right? Like one line of code in the POM XML or something like that.
A property or a model element, whatever.
Or a command line argument.
Yeah, would also be even better. Even better because in on Jenkins I could just keep the POM separate, and I could just build the same project with the highest possible plugin version and see whether it works. It will be even better as a command line argument, I would say.
Yeah, I think it should be some kind of flag where you decide what the plugin version strategy would be. Mm-hmm. That might make sense.
Yeah. And why I like Maven is because the convention of a configuration, you do nothing and it just works. And this is the only thing where it breaks, because for me it's not obvious to know what does the Maven version mean, and for me Maven 3.6 would also mean the stock plugins are coupled to this somehow. Mm-hmm. And I think in future it could be a good idea to use the same version for everything. This would be probably this is doesn't fit your architecture, but if we have Maven 3.6 and we know that all the plugins also come with version 3.6, it would be beautiful, but I think it is harder to achieve.
Probably, yes. But this is an interesting idea we should work out. And I think this specific argument, and I think it should also make sense if it would be added to the binary in the end, so you can see how the project was built.
Yeah.
Or like the manifest in the WAR file?
That could be. Or the POM file is always added, or by default added to the jar file as well. So maybe we could update that POM file with the plugin versions. Just an idea. So
I don't know if there's a huge benefit to add the POM XML to the deployment artifact, to be honest. I would rather see that as something like a manifest, right, in the WAR file jar. Because that also can add the Maven version, right? And all the commit version and everything you build. And I would see rather something like that as extra information, what was used to build it, right? Like Maven version, JDK version, and all that.
But this is actually a great idea, but because then it is absolutely reproducible. So we will always pick the newest version. If it builds, we have the version, in the jar. And then afterwards, we can just pick the version and build it again with the versions. But why I like this behavior is, if there would be a flag, use the latest release, in one point in time, my Jenkins will stop working because probably the plugin is too new, but it worked yesterday, so I know what's the change. I could look up, the jar, so okay, now it broke, but I know why. Then I can open a issue on Maven or do something about that. But right now is no one cares about that. So either there is no plugin. Sometimes some developers just like huge POMs, so they specify everything. But this is not a solution.
But maybe the current, let's say, old default versions of plugins are already good enough, and you don't need those new features that are added over the years. So.
Yeah, you are absolutely right. Over the years, I was absolutely happy until JDK 9 and 11 came. This is where the mess started, with FaceF, JUnit 5, you need, complete different version of the, how it's called, Surefire plugin. And I was happy for 10 years. And now the mess started with Java 9, 10, and 11.
True. Yeah. Same for JUnit 5, yeah.
And for me, for instance, would be if I would pick Maven version, the newest Maven version, I would expect that it already runs fine on JDK 11, and for me it would be more natural to downgrade to Java 8 or 9. Not that in default it runs on Java 8, and then I will have to do something about that to run on Java 11.
Yes, agree.
Right.
Same thing. So now I would expect to have Maven WAR version. I think it's 3.2.2 or something like that, or like the newer 3x, and not 2.
Right. So this is the discussion we had about the definition of default. Default would mean that you wouldn't change it, but in this case, because it's with the newest JDK versions, you should actually change this default. And so I'm pretty sure that we will upgrade these things with Maven 3.7.0. So we have already specified which issues we want to fix, and this is one of them. And this will also come with some other enhancements. I don't know all of them, but they have to do with if you don't specify versions in your POM file, you will get warnings. Things like this to make people more aware that if they don't specify plugin versions in their POM file, it is less reproducible. So they will get a warning. But this is all for 3.7.0, and we are first working on 3.6.1. So
what I'm already doing, so I keep my POM lean, and if I have to do something specific, for instance, recently I had to do something with code coverage, or so I specified the plugin group ID, artifact ID, and version explicitly on Jenkins, and my POM is empty. So there is no plugin specification in the POM. So I'm using more and more Maven outside the POM because for me, I think this is more natural. Why, as a developer, should I see all the plugins which actually do not matter for my daily work? They only matter on Jenkins. So there's a separation of concerns for me. And this, what matters for me, is actually just the compile on the zipper, the war or jar plugin. And this basically it. I think this changes. I think at the beginning, the expectation of Maven was, to do everything. Even, websites were generated locally and all the stuff. And but the problem is the performance. So I try to keep it, fast locally and do more stuff on Jenkins.
Yes, fully agree. I did a similar thing in the past with, I think it was static code analysis as well or something, where you totally didn't care about that locally, and you only want to add it in the Jenkins in the CI server. And then this is a very good solution for that, to keep it lean and only say that that's a responsibility of the CI server, and that can enhance the build process, but you don't try to overreach and build the whole world in your POM example.
And on top of that, what I do right now, I have one Jenkins file for all, microservice Java E projects, and the Java E projects, the POM is very, very simple. So there is a clear separation between, and if I would specify everything in the microservices, the teams would have to upgrade, if, let's say, the code coverage changes or whatever changes, they will have to know to change all the POMs. And now we have everything on Jenkins. So this changed over the years, I would say, at least in my world. I think if you're doing Android development or whatever, it's something different. But on the server, this is like it is. And interesting, right, Robert?
Absolutely, yes. We have enough things to improve on Maven. So.
I'm not sure whether improve. I have also a bad feeling. This is why I wanted to talk with you, because you are the committer, and my feeling was I tried to hack Maven. But if you are not, if you say, okay, it's actually a good idea, it's even better.
Well, I've like I said in the beginning, we are just the developers of Maven, and we have no idea how Maven is used all over the world. Some people say that they choose Maven because it's quite too hard to hack with Maven, but I have seen some very creative solutions done with Maven. So I would like to see all kinds of ways how it is used, and maybe improve Maven to support all those kinds of people. And like your POM, you want it as lean as possible. Well, that's also an approach, and there are probably more people like you. So
hopefully. Hopefully. There are actually two camps. People like Sebastian and me. I think Sebastian has a similar mindset, and there are others who specify everything. So, but this is for me a code smell. Even, they use, for instance, they specify EGB plugin. I have no idea what the thing is doing, and they still specify lots of plugins just because they can. And my minimalistic approach is, if I see a plugin, I say, oh, there is something, different or something strange in the project. If you specify everything, there's lots of noise, which is not necessary. Yeah.
Yes. But what I've also seen is that people do that because right now it is not predictable. So they was just trying to overreach and see the generated POM, look at, okay, what is the version today? And today it works, so I just overly specify so it doesn't change tomorrow, which of course is a lot of noise, because then afterwards, as you say, you don't know whether you specified because it was a reason or you just specified in order to nail it down. But if we had in the future the feature to just nail it down to something and then it won't change, I believe that a lot of folks in this camp, as you call it, would then also just say, okay, I don't need to specify it because it will not change and it's reproducible out of the box. So I can just delete everything that I don't explicitly want. So I see some huge potential in that feature regarding this issue as well.
Mm-hmm.
Well.
And I don't know whether there's a feature, command flag from Maven, where I can tell Maven, hey, Maven, give me the default version of the plugins, Maven -explain, and show me, the plugin version. Do you know something about? Because now you have to try it out.
Yes, that's true.
Isn't that the effective POM?
Yes, but the effective POM has this, but it is huge. because it is all the inheritance.
Because there's a lot of stuff.
Yes, it will have hundreds of lines probably. But I think it should be quite easy to create a new goal to the Maven help plugin to show something like this.
But it would be a good idea, right? So list all the group Apache plugins, default plugins with their versions.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that section.
Cool.
So now let's talk about the flag, if you still have time.
I have a couple of minutes, then I have to go. So
okay. So just about the flag. So what I would expect, one flag is the latest released version.
Yes.
Then the latest overall version. Sometimes you have to fall back to snapshots or whatever you call it. Why not? If we already can, and you already have the how it's called version ranges, right? The signs.
Yes, it was a bad idea.
Okay, then forget it. So then. So we have. So what do we said? We have the released, we have the snapshots, and a particular version. I think this should be enough, right? Latest available, latest released, and a specific.
Mm-hmm. And I would set it to release version if you specify nothing.
Yes.
Yeah, probably.
Yes, absolutely. This would be absolutely conventional. This is actually the reason we talk right now.
Yeah.
And I think that it would make a lot of sense to being able to specify that somewhere in the POM XML. So either it's a new element in the XML, or we could set it as a property, because you can easily override properties with -d as well, right? Once you run it. And if you don't specify a property, then it's just the default behavior of pick the latest. If you want to specify it in a POM XML, then it's just one line of code, one more line within the properties, like Maven version or Maven, whatever we want to call it. And if you want to override it, you can do it easily via -d, via running it.
Yeah, sure.
This is an excellent idea. So what you are saying, that in POM there is the one version and you can override it by starting with Maven. Because then you could on Jenkins override, the version. This is perfect. This is like what we have in Java E almost, right? Annotations can be overridden with deployment descriptors, for instance.
Yeah. Okay, so your first idea is to add a new element to the POM file. That's not possible.
That's right now, because you have to change the Maven version, the 4.0 model version, right?
Exactly. So that's not possible right now. We are working on it, but doing it as a property, that's absolutely possible.
Property would be enough.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we just need a nice name, and that's it.
So I would assume you need tomorrow for testing, and then in 2 days we can we get the feature, right?
We can start writing a blog post and ship that on Monday. Or
we can contribute with tweets, blog posts, and and mention your conferences.
Oh yeah, yes, of course.
This was Robert Scholte, right?
Yes,
Scholte. Sebastian Daschner, that's easy, right?
Yes.
And Adam Bean. Okay. So thank you. And if you have the next time, we can delve into properties if you like. But this was, I think, interesting for me.
Absolutely.
And what is the release, of Maven 3.7? With a safe harbor statement from Oracle, of course.
3.7, I don't know yet. 3.6.1 should be, I think, March or April.
Okay. Cool.
Yes. Cool. Let's do it like this.
So, thank you.